So I'm hoping that you have sound now. Um, Very interesting. If you can let me know that you have sound, that would be great. Hey, Debbie. If you can let me know that you have sound, that would be so I can hear myself. So hopefully you guys can hear me as well. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so we're going to get started. Let's talk about what the homework was, and then we'll talk about the pieces that you need to have for tonight. So, if everybody doesn't think it, you can put together a bag in a couple of hours. Ask me how. I know. Working frantically to do my homework tonight. So, this is the bag. So, this is the Wikendi. As I mentioned before, there was a kit for this. So, I did sell a kit for this on Sew Your Bag bi-monthly subscription. But the kit came with the fabric and everything you need. So I'm talking about a lot of different things if you're watching this on replay, and you may hear me mention kit, and that's because this was part of that, and this is just a sew along. So tonight, you will need your exterior pieces. So that's going to be these two pieces, right, which go on the side of your bag. You're going to also need the homework from the last video, which should have been to complete sewing your other strap. So we did one strap last night, and the homework was to do the other strap. So in the second video, I only did half the bag. So you should have that completed for tonight. You will also need your lining pieces. So you will need your two lining pieces, and those pieces, this is my pocket. I made mine very big, but you should have your two lining pieces. So here goes my one lining piece, and here goes my other one. I'll take a lint brush to this in a minute. And then this was my pocket that we're going to use, and we're going to fold in half. And then you will also need the pocket facing. I interfaced my pocket facing on the back. The pattern does not require you to do so because you don't really see it. So why waste the interfacing? But I did interface it just so that on the video, you'll be able to see what I do with this facing and how I attach it. A couple of other things that you're going to need. You're going to need your zipper. So this can be a number 3 or a number 5. I like using number 5, so that's what I'm using. You will also need some things that you prepared before. So you will need your luggage anchors. So that was these two pieces here, and we prepared those, I think, on night 1. And then you're also going to need some binding. So I do not create the binding myself. I just it's store-bought binding, and I got it from Amazon, and it came in 3 different colors, 3 yards of 3 different colors. Since it's blue, I'm just using the navy blue. You're not going to see this inside the bag, so there's nothing wrong with buying store-bought binding. If you want to make your own, you absolutely can do that as well. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm just going to very quickly fix my camera a little bit. There we go. So the first thing that we're going to need to do, or that we will be doing, is we will be creating our pocket. So I have one already created just to explain it to you so that you understand how it's going to work. So this is going to be the internal zipper pocket. This pattern is very easy to modify and add and remove things. So my internal pocket is going to be this pocket. It's a very simple pocket. What we do with the zipper facing is we put it on to our zipper, or on the back of our zipper, so that we do not see the raw edge of a zipper. So we do not want to see this raw edge on the inside. So that's why we put the zipper facing. You do not need to put a zipper facing if you do not want to, and that's totally fine, but I do it to give it a more finished look, and this will be our pocket. The pattern only calls for one pocket on one side of the bag. You can make it as deep or as shallow as you'd like. You can even leave it off if you'd like. So if you don't want the pocket at all, you can leave it off. The other thing you can do to modify is if you wanted to put some slip pockets that go across the lining, you can do that as well. So this is what the end result is going to be, and I'll be referring to this as I do different pieces of the pocket. So you're going to grab first one of your lining pieces, and this is my lining piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure down because we want to put the facing on first. So before I do that, let me get some of this lint off of here. And I did interface this, so this is interfaced. I'm going to locate the center, and what I do is I just fold it in half one way, just like this, and I take a little snip. You can put a marking with a marking tool. The reason I cut it is because then I can see the center, whether I'm looking at the front or the back, and it's about 1/8 inch. So I'm just going to take a little snip there, 1/8 inch, and I'm going to make sure my ends match on the other side as well. And since I'm doing the top, I'll do the bottom also. So that's just a habit, top and bottom. And then we're going to come back later and we'll do the sides. So once this is right side up, you're going to line up your center marks on your cutting mat, just like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our pocket facing. Now the pocket facing, we're going to make some marks on it first, and then we're going to lay it on here and we're going to work with it. So let's take our pocket facing. And like I said, I interface the back of mine. You do not need to because it's just meant to show you, but some people will interface it because they want more stability. So if you want to, you can. And what I will also say to you is just be aware of what your actual sewing machine is capable of, right? So it creates another layer of thickness if you go in and you interface it. So I'm going to grab a marking tool. And I'm going to draw the center line on this. So it tells you in the pattern how far down to go, up or down. And I'm just going to draw a center line. And this facing can be as big or as small as you need it to be. You just need it bigger than your zipper opening. I normally give a generous amount for my zipper facing because I like to have the extra fabric in case I make a mistake. So I'm just going to draw a center line like this. And then I'm going to draw a line that's 1/4 of an inch up from that center line. So it's 1/4 of an inch up. And then I'm going to draw another line. So this was the center line right here. I don't know if you can see that. It may be kind of bright. So let me just very quickly adjust this because I think it's kind of bright tonight. I don't know why that is, but let me get a little bit of light off of this. Hold, please. Okay, maybe that'll be a little bit better for us so that we can see what's happening. So I should have drawn with the black pen, but now you can see it. So right here is my center line, and that's the other line right above it. So it's 1/4 of an inch up, and I'm going to draw another line right below it as well. And for a number 5 zipper, I like to have a 1/2 inch opening. So that's why I'm doing it above and below. Okay, so now I have 3 lines. You can see that. All right. So once I've marked that, the next thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to take this piece and I'm going to lay it down on the back, but I need to center it. So I'm going to center it from the top. And to make sure it's the center, I'm just going to fold this in half and I'm going to make the same thing. I'm going to do little snips here just to make sure I get the center. So that's all I'm doing is I'm taking a snip. Make sure you readjust, the other side before you cut the center. You don't want to have it all wonky. Okay. So that's 2 little snips. And then I have my center marked up here. So what I'm going to do is take my facing, make sure it's centered. So the way I do that is if I lay my ruler on this center mark right here, I can lay my snips on that center line as well. And then what I will do is I will measure down on that center line just like that. All right, so now that's sitting down on there. It may not look centered, but it is centered just like that. I do take a piece of paper tape, and you can get this in the pharmacy. So your pharmacy should have some. You can also get it on Amazon. And I need it to stick down. So I'm going to tape it down. You may also pin it down if you want. But I'm going to take some paper tape. This is a good thing to have. One of my subscribers mentioned it, and she was absolutely right. I'm always learning new things. Her name is Nancy, and I'm always learning new things. So I tape that down so it doesn't move, because I don't want it to move while I'm sewing. And it's easy to remove. So I'm not getting a heavy tack on this. So don't get one that's very, very sticky, because you don't want the glue on there after you're done. All right. So once that's done, I then need to measure across from the center line. I'm going to measure to the left and the right. So I'm using this zipper. So what I want to do is leave enough room on either side so that when I sew it, I have enough. So I'm going to measure from the center this way and from the center that way. And that's where I'm going to sew. So what happens is if I put this right here on the center mark, you can see that's my center mark, I can then sew. So I'm going to go, and this is a 10-inch zipper. I don't think I'm giving away any trade secrets here. It's a 10-inch zipper, so I'm going to measure. I want to give it a good amount, so I'm going to measure over like 4.5 over here. So I just drew a vertical line. So I draw a line like this, and then I go back on the other side. So with the 10-inch, I'm going to have a 9-inch opening. All right. So you can see I have a little bit of space on either side. So when I go to the sewing machine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this outside box. So the outside rectangle. You're not going to sew the center line. So I'm just putting X's through there because I have sewn that line. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew the large rectangle. I'm just going to lift this up so you can see it. You see that? Nancy says, I love my paper tape. Nancy, I love your paper tape too. I love your paper tape too. It's now become part of my kit. One day I should show what's in your sewing kit. So we're going to sew right around this. Right around this. If your paper tape's in the way, no worries. It's going to peel right off. And I'm going to stitch around there using a stitch length of, I don't know, 3.5 or 3, because I want it to be nice and snug in there. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. My camera lighting is very bright tonight. I don't know. It's almost like it's darker than it was. It's a little more light than it was yesterday. So let me just, I don't think you can. Yep. Don't worry. I'm okay. Let me just change the lighting on the camera, on the sewing machine as well. So I'm just going to take that down a little bit. Okay, and let's see. I don't know why it's I want you guys to see what's happening here. Sometimes when I do that, it comes right back. I don't know. It's a little bit finicky tonight, but that's okay. You guys can see. Okay. And then hopefully we should be good. So let's sew that with that rectangle that goes around. So I normally start at the bottom, and I do not start at the corner. I mentioned that I think another time. I don't start at the corner because it's always hard to go back in that corner. But what I will do is I will start at the bottom. You can start at the top on that big vertical line. So I'm just going to get my tool. So that I can show you. So I start on this vertical line right here. Stitch length is at 3 on my sewing machine. And I'm just going to sew right around the, make sure you do the outside box. Don't sew on that center line. If you need to, when you get to the corner, if you need to, you can turn your stitch length down and take like a smaller stitch just to get in the corner. I think for myself, I'm pretty close. Make sure that you rotate your hand wheel until the needle goes up. That'll make sure that you've caught your bobbin thread at the bottom. I'm going to lower my presser foot, and I'm going to come to this other, which is the top line. So once again, don't sew on that center line. Once you're there, I'm just going to rotate again, make sure that needle's going up, and I'm going to rotate 90 degrees, and I'm going to sew back across. Okay, and I'm at the other corner. Do the same thing. So it's basically rinse and repeat. And I'm going to rotate. And then I'm going to just join the two lines at the bottom. And I will back tack. Okay. So next what we're going to do is we're going to need to cut on that center line. But one thing I want to make sure that we do when we cut on that center line is we don't cut all the way to the end. So we're going to stop at a little bit shorter. So I normally measure from this line here over, and I will measure about maybe 1/2 inch on each side of that stitch line. And just bear with me, I have to go back, but I didn't. This is what I mean. I can show you right here. This is what I mean when I say jogging. I don't know if you can see that my stitch here went at an angle. So I'm going to go back and make sure that's one clean angle there. And that's why I have you rotate your wheel. So very quickly, I'm just going to go over to the sewing machine and fix that. Because I need to cut into that corner. And the last thing I want to do is have raw edges there. So I want it to be a nice, clean square at that corner. I did such a good job, I can't even see the stitches. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, as I mentioned, I do about 1/2 inch from the edge on each side. So it's like 1/2 inch here. You can do less. You can do 1/4. I recommend 1/2 inch or 3/8 of an inch. I don't recommend, I don't recommend like, maybe 1/4 inch because it's very shallow. And I want to have a piece that I can grab. Once I've done that, I'm going to create for myself a cut line. So the way that I do that is I know that I go from this corner, which is the right hand corner where I stitched, and I'm going to draw it to the center line. And that's going to be a cut line for me. And then I'm going to do the same at the bottom. So I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to draw a line to the center. So what it makes is it makes what looks like a less than symbol right there in the corner between the two lines. So between my 1/2 inch line and my sewn line, it makes a less than symbol. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And it'll make a greater than symbol. So you should be able to see that. There's two little marks. So when you're cutting, you're going to cut along that center line. When you get to the point, and in this case of my left hand side sign, I'm going to stop. So I'm not going to cut all the way across. I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to pivot my fabric, and then I'm going to cut on that diagonal line that I created. When you cut, you're going to cut as close as you can into this corner without cutting the stitches. So that's why I went back and fixed this corner, because that stitch wasn't in the corner. And you'll do the same here. So I'll cut one, and then you'll see how I cut it, and then I'll cut the other one. So the first thing I do to make it easier on myself to cut it is I take my fabric, I rotate it, and then I fold it in half. Once it's folded in half, just like this, I pinch it, and I just take a snip on that center line. So if you take a snip on that center line, it just gives you a place to start, because you need some place to insert your stitches. I mean your scissors. So I can insert my scissor now. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to cut all the way to the end. So I'm going to cut until I get to the point that I mentioned right here. All right, so that's a little point. I'm then going to turn my scissor and I'm going to snip almost to that corner. So snip as close as you can without cutting the stitches. So now I've cut it. I'm then going to cut this other leg over here. So I'm going to snip, and I take little snips. A pointy scissor would probably work better, but now you can see it has that on it. So I've cut from center out this way, so I have to cut from center this way. So cut along the center line, just like this. When you get to the point, you're going to pivot and you're going to cut on that diagonal line till you get to the corner without cutting the stitches, and you're going to do the same on the other side. So it's better you cut shorter than longer. So now once I've done that, I will have what looks like two little triangles here. If you could see them, they're like two little triangles. I'm going to take off the paper tape. So I'm just going to peel this off of my fabric. It's okay. It's fraying a little bit, but that's okay because it's just the interface. But I wanted you to be able to see that, like I mentioned, that's why I interface the facing. And then we'll take this one out. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this facing and we're going to push it through to the reverse side. Before I do that, I'm going to finger press. Usually I iron it. It just gives it a crisper fold in, so it's sharper. So I'm just going to fold this in, but normally I would take it to my iron and I would iron it. And then you can open this up as well, and you can iron that. So you could open this. So open things up, iron them to get so that when you turn it through, it's as flat as possible. Once you've done that, I'm going to take this and push it all through to the back. So I'm going to push the entire facing to the back side of my lining. So now you can see how it's like fiddly. Okay. And then once I do that, I would come back and I'm going to iron it. So I'm going to iron it, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. So that's what it should look like on the back side. So there should be an opening on your pocket. So let's go and iron this. If you're using a waterproof canvas or something that cannot be ironed, then what you're going to do is do the best you can. You can also use double-sided tape if you need to hold this down. So I'm going to iron this seam open. That's what I'm going to start. I'm getting a lot of fraying of fabric here. So I'm going to open this and I'm just going to iron this open and flat. And it'll just make it lie that much flatter when I create the actual opening. And like I said, normally you would do this from the front. And then I'm just going to do, going to take this piece and I'm just going to iron it. And roll this in your finger until the seam is on the top. So you want to make sure you roll it until that seam's on the top. And then give the corners a little tug. And then iron it. So that's the one thing good about using cotton, is that it's very flexible. So here we go. And then of course there were those little peaks over here, so you can iron those as well. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do this and pull as hard as you can. because I do want it to iron flat. All right. And then I'll turn it over to the front and I'll give it another good ironing. So you can see, turn it over to the front and then push out your little corners here, and you want to iron them. The more that you can get that seam, open that seam up and iron it, the better it will be when it comes to lying flat. This interfacing is the same color as my exterior, so it's not, you won't easily see it if you used not the interfacing, if you used the actual pocket facing and it was a different material. You really, really have to make sure and pull really hard to make sure that it sits to the back of the fabric so you don't see that other color. So I know some people who use like a standard like black or something like that. So now that's my pocket opening. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I need to take my zipper and I need to attach my zipper to that pocket opening as well. So I'm going to take the zipper, I'm going to lay it down. Now you determine if you want your zipper to open to the right. So if I open this one's opening to the left, right? When I pull it to the left, or if it's to the right. So that's one thing nice about making your own bag. You can do that. I'm just going to cut off, I'm just cutting off these little threads here on the end of my zipper. All right. So I'm going to lay this here and I'm going to lay this over it and pull that through. I center it in the opening, just like that. And I'm going to use some double-sided tape. But before I do, let's use the paper tape. I'm going to turn this over to the back. I'm going to lay that in the opening. Make sure that your pull is in the middle. And I'll use the paper tape again. But you can put double-sided tape to hold it down. I'm just going to use paper tape. And I'm just going to put it on there just like that. So I just want to hold it down. And I'll readjust it in a minute. And I'm going to flip it over. So it's more or less centered, but I just want to make sure when I flip it over that it's to my liking. So for example, the end here is not. Okay. And I really don't like the way this is sitting on the end. So I try to get my ends to sit a certain way so that they're totally in the middle. So this end was sitting up to the top. So I'm just going to take some tape and I'm just going to put it over on the top and I'm going to press real hard. And then I'm going to do the same over here. So I want to try to get the teeth so that it's almost right in the middle of that vertical end. But other than that, it's pretty good. All right. And then that way, when I flip it over, I should be able to tape it again, just like that. Perfect. Okay. So now everything's taped and ready to go. Now that I taped it on the back, I can take this piece off because I know it's right. All right. I pushed it down hard and I know it's right. So the next thing we're going to do is we will be sewing around this edge. So I want to sew around that edge on this. So the way, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I want to lock my bottom of my zipper, my pocket down. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm just checking the directions to make sure that I'm telling you the right thing according to the directions. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but okay. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to get my pocket. Now my pocket is very long. I did that on purpose. All right. And I'm going to line this edge up against the edge of my zipper. So I'm sort of making a zipper sandwich right there. And it should be centered. So mark your center and then make sure it aligns with this center line. I'm eyeballing it because I have more than enough fabric here. And I'm just going to tape that down again. All right. Good. With this pocket fully open, it should be right side down. So it's right side to wrong side. Because when I flip this down like this, just to show you like that, what you will see is when I open the pocket, I can see the blue. So make sure that you see the wrong side of this. It's flipped towards the top, and you see the wrong side of the back of your lining piece. I'm going to flip it back over, and it should stay like this, right? It should stay like this so that you can see it. Just want to double check on here. Okay. Let's not do this. So I'm going to take this off. I apologize. Let's sew this down first. So let's sew around this edge here first, and then we'll attach the pocket. So let's do that. So it's going to be 1/8 of an inch all the way around the outside. Once again, I start at the bottom. So I start down here the same way I did when I was stitching the opening. I start at the bottom. If you use double-sided tape, I suggest you use like 1/8 of an inch, because it'll help to keep it, you know, out of your lining, out of your it'll help to keep it outside of your sewing line if you put the 1/8 of an inch at this edge, on the outside edge, and then it still holds it, but it keeps it out of gumming up your needle. So I'm going to change the stitch length to 4, and I'm going to stitch around. If you need to move your zipper pull out of the way, so lift your presser foot, slide that pull out of the way, and then continue stitching. When you get to your corner, you're going to go about 1/8 past where the corner is over here. So here's my corner, and here's my needle. It's about 1/8 of an inch. You're going to lift your presser foot. You're going to rotate, drop your presser foot, and we're going to stitch across. And then you're going to lift your presser foot again, and we're going to stitch again at 1/8 of an inch. So I counted my stitches, so it's about 5 stitches to get to the 1/8, and I just did that so when I get to the other side, I know it's about 5 stitches, but you don't have to do that. So I'm just going to readjust this a little bit, and we're going to stitch across. Just making sure I'm keeping my pull out of the way. And I'm going to readjust this a little bit. Once again, go to about 1/4 of an inch past. Lift your presser foot, rotate, and I counted 5 stitches, so I'm going to just count 5 stitches. You don't, like I said, you don't have to count. I'm just crazy like that sometimes. And then I rotate one more time, and I match that. I line it up. And then I will back tack. And I cut my thread. So now my zipper is in. Okay, so now my zipper's in, and I've top stitched all the way around. So the next thing I need to do, now I'm going to add the pocket. So the pocket gets added. I'm just going to move this paper tape. And you can see it comes off. I'm just pulling it at an angle, and it rips off. It doesn't really stay. And I'll show you how to add that. That was me sticking it down, but it comes off, I promise. And the nice thing is it comes off. If you pull it, I mean, don't yank it, but if you pull it, you know, carefully, it does not. The other thing about it is it doesn't mess up your stitches. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to my zipper itself, the lining piece for my pocket. Once again, you can use double-sided tape if you would prefer, and the double-sided tape you do not have to remove. And I'm just trying to get it out of the path of my zipper teeth. There we go. Okay. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my lining piece and I'm going to stitch it on. So the way that we're going to do that is you're going to grab the lining. You should be able to grab this piece as well, this and this, and make sure it's centered. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch that, or you can stitch this to this. It's up to you how you want to do it. I'm just going to turn it around and make it easier so you can see what I'm doing. All right. So you can stitch this to this. Just trying to remember. Okay, yeah. And then once we stitch this down, we're going to flip this down and we're going to stitch that to the top. All right, so that's what we're going to do. I didn't do it the other way because if you stitch it around, you'll end up sealing up your pocket, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to stitch this to the zipper, and the way that I'm going to do that, I want to line this piece up with the raw edge of the zipper, because remember I said I want to hide the zipper. So when you do it like this, if you flip it over like that, all right, we're going to stitch right here where the fold is. So right where the fold is, if you stitch that, it will hide your fabric. So in this case, I am going to use some double-sided tape because it will make my life easier and make your life easier, I promise. And I am using the 1/8 inch double-sided tape to do this. So I'll show you both ways. The double-sided tape you do not have to remove. So I'm just going to put it right here on the edge of the zipper itself. Fold it down, just like that. I'm going to take the edge of this, peel the backing off of your double-sided tape, just like that. And it should be shiny. Oh, there we go. Okay. It should be shiny. I'm sorry. So I peeled it off. You see the shiny? That's the double-sided tape. I have a center mark. If you fold this in half, and it should be longer than it is wider, by the way, your pocket, because we need the length, not the width, right? The width should be as long as this facing is. So I'm going to take this. This is the top. This is the bottom of the zipper. So I'm going to do that first. So I don't know if you can see. This is the bottom. There's more fabric down here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay it against this. Now, if I fold this in half like that, and this is my pocket, and I'm matching long side to long side, long side to long side. And then I can mark the center of the top. And let's do the bottom, because when we come back, we're going to have to put the bottom up there as well. So let's cut that as well, the center mark for that. And I'm matching long side to long side to get the center of the top. All right. And once we've done that, the next thing we're going to do now is we can match those center lines, and we know that our lining is center. So you see that's the center line. I'm going to line it up here, right here on the edge of the zipper, just like that. All right, so then I know that that's that. If I now take this and flip it over, so it should be right side down, line to the edge of the zipper. I put double-sided tape so it'll stay. When I flip it over like this, right? So that's now an upside down pocket, right? This is the bottom, this is the top. Notice these are both right side up. I'm going to fold this back just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch right along this at about 1/8 of an inch. So right next to that fold line, as close as you can get without, don't sew the fold, but as close as you can get. So we're going to sew that. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. All right, so I'm going to start it right here where I have the facing. So I'm starting at the facing edge, and I'm sewing as close as I can to that fold without sewing the fold. The other thing I want to do is I want to start by moving my zipper pull out of the way. So I'm just pulling it down And I am going to use a stitch length of 3 to do this. And I'm going to stitch straight across. And you should be about 1/8 of an inch away. But you're sewing on this zipper itself. Do not sew on the fold. What you're trying to do is seal up that zipper. And I am taking my time with this because I'm sewing so close to it, I can very easily. When you get to your zipper pull, move it out of the way so I can feel that I'm near it. If you have to lift your presser foot, do so. And I'm going to sew all the way out to the end here. And back. Okay. So I sewed so close to it that you can probably barely see it, but I'll try to hold it up so you can see it. All right, so it's right in there. I sewed real close. So now I'm going to open this up just like that. If you sew too close, you'll get a pinching of the fabric. I don't have any pinching of the fabric. That's how close I sewed. But when I open it up now, my zipper like this, you can see in there, I don't see the raw edge. There's no raw edge to my zipper here. So now what I have to do is I have to sew the top piece as well. So I'm going to take the top. I'm going to add some more tape there to hold this down. I'm going to close up my zipper and take some tape. I'm going to run it along the top of that piece right there. Take off the backing. And do it like this. I realized I did this a little bit different than the directions, and I apologize for that. It's just, there were like 3 different ways you can do this, and I realized I did this different than I did it on the directions, so that's why I was, I guess, a little bit confused. But follow the directions, and that's on page 25, installing the internal zipper pocket, and you'll follow that. But this is another way that you can do it. I do like this way, so that's probably why this one came to my mind first. But I will do a quick video of the other way, so if anybody wants to know how to do it. So I'm just pulling this a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to stitch across that as close as I can, 1/8 of an inch, but right next to it. Once again, I'm starting on the zipper facing. Make sure not to sew that fold, because the last thing you want to do is pinch that fold. So it's better you're shorter on it than on it. And back and get there. Right. So now that I did that, when I open my pocket at the top, you can see you don't see the raw edge of my zipper. That's just a stray piece of interfacing. All right, so there's no raw edges for that pocket. So the last thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to close up the side. Make sure, very important, make sure that you're sewing this with the pocket down towards the bottom of your bag. I have sewn it this way because it's very easy to do so. And then when you flip it over, your pocket is sticking out. So it should be down towards the bottom. Straighten it out. Just flatten it out. Just like that. I sew it from the front side. So I sew it from this side here. So because I can see everything. And yes, we will have extra material over here. I stitch going straight down this line here. And then I just cut this off. And I'll do that for both sides, and it will close up my pocket. We are not turning this pocket through the lining. This is not going to be a birthing bag. So we're going to make sure that all the pockets close. We're going to do it on this side, and we're going to do it on this side. And you should definitely add some clips in there just to hold it in place. If it makes it easier for you, when you get to the sewing machine, take your pocket piece, take your ruler, and trim it off. So I'm going to trim this side off. I can do it without it, but I'm just showing you in case you, it'll make it easy. So you're going to trim to this line here because this is what we're sewing. So wherever you trim is where it's going to be. So I'm just cutting this just like this. Cut that piece right off. Okay, so now I trimmed it, and I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to trim it this way as well. All right, so I'm going to trim that right to that piece. It's a lot easier if you straighten this out as much as you can. And you can measure across. So if you say I'm going to measure from this edge in, right? For me, it's about 1 inch from the edge. And it should be about the same for you. All right, so now that's nice and trimmed. On both sides. All right, so on this side and this side, and then add some clips, and then we're going to sew down the sides and close up our pocket. So you should have no open seams on the side or the top. And I back tack, because every now and then, you know, if stitches get loose down here, things go into the line of your bag. So we're going to stitch here, using a stitch length of 3. Part of the problem is if you know how to sew things in your mind, you automatically go to that way. So I think that's what I did with this zipper. And I'm going to back tack at the beginning and the end. That's what I did with this zipper. I went to what I know. Take your time going over that zipper. And I am sewing, it ends up being about a quarter, I'm sorry, it ends up being about a 1/4 of an inch that you're stitching. And I can, because the zipper's so loose, I can just push the bottom of the other side up in there and sew. And then I'll just cut it when I'm done. And just make sure you match everything up. You don't want to have a hole in your side of your pocket. And be careful not to stitch any extra fabric that you're not supposed to. So don't stitch your pocket. Stay away from your pocket. I am stitching, however, over my little tab right here. I am stitching over that. And like I mentioned, this is about a 1/4 of an inch. Once you trim it down, I took it off about 1 inch. Okay, so now my pocket is closed. I've done everything I was supposed to do. Like I said, make sure the pocket is going down. I want to snip this so that I don't have my pocket joined at the bottom. And I am done. When I open this, everything's no raw edges. I can stick my hand in there. It's not coming through. All right, there's nothing coming through to the bottom, and I can stick my hand in there. So I'm just going to take off some of this. All right, no raw edges, perfect pocket, sealed up. I'm not birthing the bag, so it works out very well. Okay. We're not doing a pocket for the other side. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take this and we will be sewing our bag together. So let's do that. Just want to get, I want to get some of this lint off. It's actually fibers, right? So I have my other one where I have nothing on it. You can put 2 pockets if you would like. I'm going to close up this pocket just to make sure it is firm. But what I need to do is add these to the exterior of my bag. So you're going to grab your bag, exterior, and you should have put the front on it. So the next step is to put the back or the lining. Once again, we are sewing the line. We are sewing at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So to allow me to do that in a way that is easy, easy is relative, right? To allow me to sew it in, I'm going to switch out my presser foot to my smaller presser foot, and I have a 1/8 one here. So it's smaller than the other one. I would recommend that you use a zipper foot or a skinny foot or eighth foot or whatever it is, just so that you can get as close as you can. I'll show you the different zipper feet. Take mine off of my machine. And I'll show you what they look like, the difference. Okay. So I have two zipper feet here. Okay. And this is one, and this is the other one. So I'll bring it to the camera. Can you see that? So this one is wider. This is my standard one, and this one is slimmer. I'm going to use this slimmer one, which for me is a 1/8, or some of you may have a skinny foot. And I'm taking this one off, which is a standard sewing machine foot, off of my sewing machine because I want to get as close as I can. And 3/8 of an inch is very close to the zipper teeth. And that's why. So I'm going to use the skinnier foot so I can get as close as I can. You can use your zipper foot because that's the whole purpose of it, is to use it for zippers. Okay, so grab your front or your exterior. And it doesn't really matter. You can grab the piece with the pocket or the piece without the pocket. It doesn't really matter because we're going to put them both on here anyway. I'm going to fold this in half and lay it flat, just like this. Right? So I have both of the right sides together. I'm going to put in my lining here. So I'll just take the one with the pocket. So the whole purpose of this is to encase this within the pocket. So within the lining, because the lining, when you're done, should be facing towards the center, and it should be opposite of this, right? So in order to make that happen and to make it successful, I'm going to need to sew this lining to my bag. All right. So I'm just going to put some clips in here just because there's foam and everything. So I'm just going to put some clips to hold it together. So we're going to make what's known as a zipper sandwich. So it's easier for me to do it this way, right? So I'm going to clip my lining, and I'll try to explain it to you as easy as I can. When you lay the zipper down, you're going to have a bottom piece of your zipper in the top. You're going to lay this lining piece wrong side up or face down, right? But you're going to clip it to the top portion of the zipper. Don't clip it to the bottom. You're going to clip it to the top, and I'll show you when I'm done. Make sure we have center marks. So make sure you match up those center marks. And I'm actually going to be sewing from the zipper side. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting my clips in a little bit with the flat side to the top. So I'm going to do this. I normally do the center. Then I line up my ends. That's usually the way I do it. Make sure you push your zipper down. Yes, you have that piece, and we're going to get rid of that piece in a minute. But you're going to line those up like that. If you have double-sided tape, use your double-sided tape. I would recommend that you not use pins because pins will distort the shape of your zipper, and that can lead to a wonky or rippled zipper. But if you're a master of doing it without that happening, go for it. And I'm just clipping the other side next, and then I'll start clipping in the middle. So I normally do the middle, the ends, and then I clip going across. And that's because I need the ends to match. But if I have to fiddle with the other part of this, then I can. Once again, make sure that you're clipping to the top portion of the zipper, and I'll show you when I flip it before I sew it so you can see what I'm doing. And put as many clips as make you comfortable. Normally, if I was using double-sided tape, I wouldn't have this many clips in here. All right, so what I did, took my exterior, put them right sides together. Once again, right sides together. I then took my lining piece, and my lining piece I put right side down or interfacing side up. I clipped the top here with the top of the zipper. So there was two places, and I'll show you. There's this bottom piece of the zipper, and then there's the top. I clipped it to the top, and the reason I do that is because when I'm finished sewing and I flip this up, right, just like this, I'm just turning it around. This now is the lining, and the wrong sides are together, right? So the wrong side is together. So that's why I clipped it to the top and not to the bottom. All right, so I'm going to flip it back down, and we're going to sew this in at 3/8 of an inch, and that's a little closer than we have been sewing in other patterns. So just keep in mind, figure out what your 3/8 of an inch mark is, and we're going to sew this. You should, on this one I didn't draw it, but on your piece that we had from the other night, oh, I did draw it. I ironed it out is what I did. You should have a piece here that shows as 3/8 of an inch. So I had you measure 3/8 of an inch, but because I used a Frisian marker, I ironed it out. So you can redraw that 3/8 of an inch line if you want. I have it marked on my sewing machine, so I'm not going to remark it, but I had this marked as the top. All's good. We're just going to go with this. So now this is my mark for 3/8 of an inch because my plate does not have a 3/8 of an inch mark. And I'm just going to sew with that 3/8 of an inch mark. And I'm going to sew straight across. So I'm not starting at the zipper. I'm sewing straight across from the very edge, and I will back tack. I am using a stitch length of 3. When you get to the zipper, and my zipper is about right here, I can feel the zipper teeth. You should be running, I think, almost like next to it. If you have to move your pulls out of the way, your zipper pulls, please do so. So I'm going to back tack here. Remember, this is a little bit thicker because I put that zipper tab at the end to hide that raw zipper end. And then as you go across, that's it. Once again, if you're using a zipper foot, it will be, you'll be probably right next to it. And there is foam under here, so just be careful. I'm coming up to my zipper pull, so I'm going to move them both out of my way. Make sure also your straps are out of the way. You don't want to get those caught in there. Mine are out of the way. And I'm just going to keep going. And I am taking my time because there is some thickness here. You can see I didn't adhere my interfacing very well. And you're going to back tack when you get to the end. Okay, so now that's done. And I'm going to have to resew that because it didn't. All right, so that should be done. Mine didn't take, so something happened with my bobbin. So just bear with me while I resew this. I know that I have a full bobbin because I filled it before we started. So It's not that, it's just stuff happens. So I'm going to put double-sided tape just because I don't want to have to reclip it like I did before. I just don't want to have to reclip it. But you can use double-sided tape. You can use, some people put little drops of glue on here, and then let it set. You know, they'll iron it to let the heat set it. I'm just going to put this double-sided tape on here. And then I'll just go back now, and I'll just, since I have to redo it anyway, I'll draw my 3/8 of an inch line on here. Like I said, it got erased when I ironed it. It went away because heat. So let's do this. So what is everybody's plans for this weekend? Is it sewing and more sewing, or is it family and friends? What's going on? Hey, you're not late. You're right on time, Miss Varna. There's no such thing as late. Not when it comes to sew-alongs. Sorry, I'm just... drawing the line. So it, some places it's angular. Okay, so that's one, and then we'll do the other one. So I'm going to just take this off the backing. Make sure you press it down good so sometimes it doesn't peel right away. Okay, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't cooperate. Okay, and then I'm just going to put this right here. And I will sew it. Once again, make sure your straps are out of the way. I should have mentioned that before. I didn't have any problems because I pulled them out of the way. But I should have mentioned keep your straps out of the way because there's nothing worse than you sewing and your straps get caught up in there. I'm just taking my time here. I know it seems like I'm rushing, but I'm taking my time. And like I said, for me, it's easier to sew it from the other side, the drawn line side over here. So I'm going to re-sew this and go across here like this again. So let's see if we get it this time. I'm just going to make sure that my bobbin thread is peeking out. I think that's maybe what I need to do. And I'll give it one more go. Okay, let's try it again. Like I said, I know that I have enough because I did put, I did refill my bottom before I started my session. Perfect. Perfection. Okay, so now I have my line on here, so I'll just follow that line. Remember I said back tack at the start, at the end. Straps should be out of the way. And I am coming to those poles, so I'm going to move them out of the way again. And then just double check that my straps are out of the way. Zipper pulls are out of the way. And I'm just feeling to make sure that my zipper teeth are like right here. There we go. And I think I did it this time. Hopefully I got it right. Okay. That was a lot. So now what happens if I flip it up? It looks scary. No, if I flip it up, I can see that this is the lining for this. All right, so if I put these together, I now have, I'll show you my lining on the inside here. I just want to show you. So it should be wrong sides together. So now when I flip this over, you can see I have the lining. So that was one side. Whew! Getting a little warm in here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. So I'm going to close up my zipper because it makes it easier for me to do this. And I'm going to sew it to the other side because I'm missing this side here. So we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to flip the piece. Now I have one lining on, right? But it'll be right sides together. And at the top of this zipper, which is the other side, I am going to put my other lining piece. And I'm going to make sure now when I lay it down, the lining piece will be right side up, but it will be right side to right side, the lining piece. So instead of going back in the interest of time, we have corporate meetings, and when they run a little bit over, sometimes whoever is the presenter, the moderator goes, in the interest of time, we're gonna do this. So I'm gonna use double-sided tape in the interest of time instead of having you watch me clip and unclip. It just makes it quicker for me to sew. Once again, I'm putting this at the very edge. I don't know if I'm showing you. Here we go. Okay, I'm putting it at the very edge of my zipper. But when I stitch, this is a 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. Because I'm using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, it's totally out of my seam. You can use 1/4 of an inch, which means that you're getting more coverage with your tape. You just have to, if you're doing a 1/4 of an inch seam, you have to be careful. In this case, it's 3/8 of an inch seam, so it's not a problem. But I like to have both. So if I had to look in if I did a video of what's in my sewing bag, you would see that I have two sizes. I have the 1/4 of an inch, and I also have the 1/8 of an inch, which are my two staples in my sewing kit when it comes to double-sided tape. So I'm just marking the centers of these by doing little snips. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm going to peel this back. Once again, it is the top part of the zipper because the bottom part I already did, right? That was that other piece. So I'm going to take this off. So this is not cooperating with me tonight. My double-sided tape. It's like Murphy's Law. Okay, so I'm going to get it. Normally if you take an awl, and I couldn't find my awl on my desk here. If you take an awl, you can peel it. You just poke it and peel it and it comes right off. So I peeled it off. I'm just sticking it down, making sure it sticks nice and well. And I'm just going to peel this off. Now I do peel the whole thing at one time. Depending on what you're doing, you may want to peel it a little bit at a time, so you're not pulling it back, because it does stick to itself and it can be annoying trying to unfurl it. But I stick it all, I took it off. I'm going to match the center of this with the center of the top of the zipper, what's considered the top of the zipper. Remember that it's the wrong side of your lining. So your wrong side should be facing up. I am going to clip it, and I'm just clipping it because I want to make sure that I stick it down right. So I'm matching up all the edges here and sticking it down. Just like that. And I'm going to stick it down all the way to the end. So I clipped it so that I can make sure that it stays. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I work out or in, depending on, what I'm doing. So now that's all sticking. I'm going to flip it over, make sure that I have my back side here is good, or the other side. So I can see I got a little bit off here. So I'm going to, what's nice is you can peel it back and re-stick it down. And I think I will clip it here as well on the end, just so to make sure it doesn't shift. And then I think I'm good. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to once again stitch this at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we're going to stitch across here at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You can stitch it from that side, or you can stitch it from your riveted side, which is this side here, your riveted side. It's up to you. So let's go back to the sewing machine and do that. So Vaughn asks Nancy, do you sew through the paper tape? So Nancy, the answer is yes, Vaughn. You sew through it and then you peel it off. So that's the nice thing about it, which, thank you, Nancy, for the tip. But it's not very tacky, and you can actually rip it right off. If you want, you could take, I was having some troubles with it, but you can always take like the point of your scissor or an awl and just prick it and lift it if you're having problems, but it comes right off. And the other thing is too, is when you're pulling it with the stitches, like if there's stitches going through it, just make sure that you pull gingerly. It doesn't rip through the stitches, but still it's always good to take your time. And it will rip right through, it'll rip, it's perforated. So it shouldn't be an issue. So the answer is yes. And Miss Nancy said yes. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to sew this. And what I'm doing is I'm readjusting off camera. So if you want to know what's happening over here, I'm readjusting my zipper pulls, and I'm making sure that my straps are out of the way. So those are important things, right? Straps out of the way, zipper pulls out of the way. And I'm going to start sewing. So it doesn't matter if you want to sew from the foam side, you can sew from the foam side. I'm just sewing from this opposite side. And it is 3/8 of an inch with a stitch length of 3. If you're finding that it's too bulky or your machine's having problems with it, you can definitely go up to like a 3.5 if you want, even a 4, because we're going to top stitch. So I'm going to back tack. And like I said, I can feel right here. I can feel my zipper teeth, so I know that I'm right next to my zipper teeth. And honestly, if you tried to go above it, you'd end up going over a lump, which is your zipper teeth, and that's a clue that maybe you're too close to that zipper. And no, I'm not pushing it So if anybody's looking at me going, is she pushing that? No. What I'm doing is I'm repositioning my hand to move with my sorry, with my fabric. So I'm going to reach in here now. I have the zipper pulls that I reached. Make sure your needle is in the down position, and I'm just going to move both of them out of the way. Sometimes you can do it with the presser foot down, but if you can't, just lift it up. Make sure that the needle's in the down position. And I'm just going to make sure everything here is aligned, and it is. Okay. Everything's aligned. I'm going to open this up, and we should have I'll show you. We now have a zipper on one side, and if I turn it over, we have the lining on the other side, and I can pull it back. So I'm going to right now I'm going to iron this as flat as I can get it, and I'm going to pull. When you pull it, try to align your bottoms and your sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clip it to make sure that they totally align, and then I'm going to iron this. Remember, you have that foam in here, so you want to make sure that if it's too much foam in there, you can definitely come back in here if you want and trim back the foam. When I sewed it, I did not get any foam, so I don't have any extra, so it's really just this folding over the foam. So if you iron it, it should lie flat over that foam piece. Okay, so I'm going to make sure everything's lying flat. I am going to clip it, and the reason that I'm clipping it is not to sew it right now. We're not going to sew it, but I want to make sure that it's as flat as possible when I iron it. And I'm just doing this to iron it. Just makes my life that much easier. After we've ironed this, we're going to top stitch, and then after we've top stitched, we are going to start sewing and adding it and putting it together. So do not baste anything, just clip everything together to iron it so it's totally flat. That's really all I'm doing. And I'm going to iron it, for the most part, I'll iron it on the lining side, and that's because I don't want to iron that webbing that I put on the other side. And I also, like I said, I just want to make sure it's smooth. I'll come back, and on the other side, I will iron near the top where the zipper is, but I won't iron like the whole thing. So like I said, I'm adding clips just to make sure I'm getting it as flat as possible. The reason that I'm doing this is because I also want to do the top stitching, and you don't want this puckering when you're doing the top stitching. So there's nothing worse than you do a top stitching and then all of a sudden you find fabric over here on this side that shouldn't be over there. So I pin everything that I can out of, or clip everything I can out of the way in preparation for that top stitching. Okay. So now I'm just going to iron this. I want this to be as flat as possible. So I'm going to just really, really iron this really well. And then I'll flip it over and I'll iron that's the other side as well, which is the exterior. So this is one big bag. I think Varner said, this is one big bag. I warned you guys, it's a big bag. So I am pushing this lining fabric out of the way or down. And I'm just going to iron. That's all I'm going to do, because I want it to be as flat as possible. Listen, guys, when we do this top stitching, if you go off and your top stitching is a little bit off, I top stitch from the right side. But, you know, sometimes you don't catch this underside. The purpose of the top stitching is so that your lining doesn't long term get caught in your zipper. There's nothing worse than buying a bag, and we're making a bag, but there's nothing worse than I've purchased bags where when I unzipped it, because this lining wasn't top stitched, I catch this in my zipper. So then now I'm spending like so much time trying to dislodge that. So that's the purpose of top stitching, and that's so that it keeps this your lining away from your the rest of your zipper as it moves back and forth. So yes, you can skip it if you'd like. It's like the basting, right? Like you can skip it. But you know, don't say I didn't warn you. So now this side I can just iron the top over here, and I'm just ironing it as flat as I can. Once again, I don't want to. This melts. That the webbing will melt because it's a polyester. So just gonna iron it. So now once you've given that a good press, we're going to go back to the sewing machine and we are going to top stitch. The top stitching that we're going to do is going to be at, you can do 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to do mine at an 1/8 of an inch because that's what I like. And I'm just going to be very narrow, but you can definitely do 1/4. That 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch should help to lock down the foam that's inside. I top stitch at a longer stitch length, so I'm going to turn my stitch length to a 4. You can use a 4, 4.5, whatever makes you happy. I am going to roll one side of the bag because, once again, very big bag. Make sure you get those straps out of the way. So I'm going to roll the bag. And I have my foot on there. And I'm going to start at this end. And I'm just going to top stitch on the exterior fabric at 1/8 of an inch. So my foot is actually 1/8 of an inch, so it makes it easier. I'm just going to I'm rolling my bag. That's all I'm doing. You know, sometimes people think they're missing something. You're not missing anything. There's nothing happening here. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch. And take your time with this. That's one side. And I'm going to do the same on the other. Like I said, you can do it at 1/4 of an inch if you want. Totally fine. I just do it at 1/8 of an inch. The directions say 1/8 of an inch, but you know, it's what makes you comfortable. Just getting myself situated here because, once again, big bag. And I am far enough away from my zipper pull that I don't have to move them out of the way. And that's it. Okay, so top stitching is done. And then The next thing we're going to do is remove all my extra clips that I have that I was holding it down with. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew our bag together. So the way we're going to do that is we need to sew the lining to the lining and the exterior to the exterior. So we're going to sew a tube. So if you lay it down with the exterior facing right side up, just like this, right? You're going to grab both of your exteriors and you're going to align the bottoms. So if you remember, I said when we were doing the straps that you should be careful about and make sure you measure and all that good stuff, because we want to make sure that our straps match right here. If yours are a little bit off, if they're a little bit off, they shouldn't be like a whole bunch. It's okay because it's the bottom of the bag, right? So if you have to finagle it in some way, like you take a little bit, like a little tuck over here like this, just to make it line up, then nobody's going to see that little tuck. And that's totally fine. So if you're off by like, you know, 1/8 of an inch, even by 1/4 of an inch, don't stress yourself so much. Just take a little tuck either here. You have to make sure the ends line up and the straps line up, right? Even if your center mark here is a little bit off, that's okay. Take a little tuck. And just, you know, let it ride. Let it ride, guys. Let it ride. Just take a little tuck and, you know, make sure it lines up. So I'm just going to, your ends and the ends and your straps are what's important. Everything else you can just, you know, fudge it, for lack of a better term. Just work with it. It'll be fine. It's the bottom of the bag. Nobody's going to see it. If it's very far off, yeah, take it out and redo it. But if it's just a little off, nobody's going to see it. So I am going to be sewing along the bottom here at 3/8 of an inch. This is my exterior. I'm now going to flip it over to the lining and I'm going to do the same thing. I will be sewing at 3/8 of an inch. Now, when you're sewing this in at 3/8 of an inch, you're only going to sew the bottoms. You're not going to sew the sides of your bag, right? Because we want to make a tube, because the way that we're going to craft this bag is we're going to use binding at the end. So there will be raw edges. All right, so there will be. So we're going to sew stitch length of 3, the bottom of the lining, and then the bottom of the exterior. I am going to back tack. If you need to, let me change. I'm going to just change out my presser foot. If you need to, you can increase your stitch length. So I'm just going to switch out this presser foot. And the reason that I do that is because I need it to be more surface area pushing down on my material. So when I'm doing the zipper, I don't need as much, you know, of the foot pushing down because I'm just trying to get close. But when I'm sewing, I want as much of, you know, as I can for it to be pushing down on my material. Okay. 3/8 of an inch we're going to sew at. I put washi tape, like I said, right here for myself. Stitch length is a 3. If you have to, you can make it 3 1/2. Take your time. I normally turn to Nancy and I ask her, hey, Nancy, what's the needle reading on this? And Nancy tells me how many needles she broke. And that's the needle reading. Can I mention big bag? It's a big bag. Okay. Almost to the end. Okay, so that was my exterior. I'm going to now do um, my lining. Once again, we're not sewing the sides, so do not sew the sides. We need a tube. So now, this is my lining, 3/8 of an inch. Yes, I do a lot faster on the lining, and that's because I know that the lining piece itself is thinner, so I can go a little faster. When it's thicker, I don't want to go as fast because I want to make sure that, I'm not bending the needle or anything like that. So if you want to know what I'm doing, I'm lifting the bag, the exterior, because it was hanging off the edge, and I feel like I'm fighting against the weight of it. That's what I was doing. Okay, I'm done with that. So I've done the exterior and I've done the lining piece. Ooh, none of this, but yay, Nancy! Nancy says she broke no needles. So it's almost beginner friendly. um, Way to go. Either you're getting better at this, Nancy, or I'm not making it as challenging for you. I don't know which. I'm going to say that I'm not making it challenging because you're a really good bag maker. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick my hand in the lining or the exterior. And I need to flip this right side out. So you can open up the zipper itself. And we're just going to flip everything. Zipper open, it just makes it easier to maneuver. All right. And we're going to maneuver it in such a way that the lining comes out the other side and everything's facing everything, So now the lining and the bag are the right direction that they should be. And then all you want to do is make sure you have the exterior of the bag facing you, which means once you get that done, you're going to reach all the way in, grab it on the other side, and you're going to flip it through one of the sides. And you're going to make it right side out. Just like that. Whew. Okay. that's my bottom, my straps. Remember I said it doesn't matter. And then I'm gonna zip this, and that's your bag. So let's straighten this out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up my bottom seams. I'm going to nest them. So, and I'll explain why in a minute. I'm going to sew around this entire opening on both sides just to make sure that they're attached, and I'm going to baste them. So nesting means that I take one set of seams. So I have two seams down here, right? So this is one and this is the other one. I feel like I'm going to see blue thread forever now. And this is the other one over here. What I do when I nest is I take one set of the seams and I push it to one side. So I'm taking the exterior and I'm pushing both of them, both pieces of fabric to the right. I'm going to take the other set, which is the seam at the bottom, and push those to the left. And then all I'm doing is matching up the two stitch lines. So I'm matching that stitch line on the lining with the one on the front. And that's what's called nesting. Some people open it up. So there are times that I'll open it up, especially if I'm trying to get a flatter seam. You can snip it to trim down as well. But I'm just going to nest them. And then what I'm going to do is clip around. Now we have to add our luggage anchors. So we're going to add that in a minute. But I'm clipping these all around. And remember, I'm right side out. The whole bag is right side out, right? And I have these big open gaps on the side, which is totally fine. I promise. And we are getting to the home stretch. So I'm clipping the lining to the exterior is what I'm doing because I'm going to sew around the whole bag. Oops. I just lost a clip. And I am pulling this a little bit just to make sure. So use as many clips once again that you feel comfortable with. If you need 500, use 500. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever number clips. I don't know if you remember that I mentioned that I always cut my zipper 1.5 inches shorter so it stays out of the seam allowance on my bag closures. And that is because, I'll show you in a minute. When you look at the top, I have this much room on both sides. I'll show you. That much room on both sides. So if I want to take a 1/2 inch seam, I could do that. If I want to take a 3/8, I could do that. But this piece will not get caught in the stitch in the side. So it looks neater and there's not bulk also in there. So that's why I cut my zipper 1.5 inches shorter when I'm doing zipper closures. So now we're going to do the same on this side. We're going to nest those seams. So no, I did not iron the bottom of my bag opening. I did not iron this flat and do anything like that. I'm just going to push one to the left, one to the right. It doesn't matter which one you push to which side. I just try to be consistent. So on the other side, I did the exterior to the right. So on this side, I did the exterior to the right, but it really does not matter. And normally what I would do is I would do that and clip the bottom and clip the top. But since the top piece is already sewn, I don't really need to clip that. And we will be sewing this at 1/8 of an inch all the way around to baste it in. If you have, if you can remove the tray on your sewing machine and you can you can do that. Combination of both. I missed that, Nancy. Somebody must have. You said a combination of both. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I missed something. Okay. So now I've clipped both sides, right? I've clipped both ends. It's still open, so don't forget it should still be open. But you want to make sure. And I'm just pulling it because I can see at the top I have a little bit of a. Oh, I know what you're talking about. When I said either I'm getting, I know what you're talking about. I think it said it was the needle thing. Either I'm making them easier or, but I think it's because you're a good bag maker. That's my vote. Okay, so now what happens is I'm good to go. Go to the sewing machine. You can take off your free-on. Mine does not have a free-on, so I'm just going to take my time and sew around both openings. So let's see if we can get this. There we go. Okay. So I am going for myself. I'm going to open my zipper. And the reason I'm opening the zipper is to give me more play. This is already going to be challenging for me, but we're going to get it done. Okay. So I just opened my bag, and that's just to make it more pliable for myself and for no other reason. I do not, like I said, mentioned before, I do not have the free arm. So I just, bear with me while I get this around the camera. And I will stitch from the inside only because it makes it easier to do so. But you can stitch from the outside. I am going to do it at 1/8 of an inch all the way around, which means I have to increase the stitch length on my sewing machine. I do mine to 6, which is my longest, but you can increase it to whatever stitch length you would like on your sewing machine. If you have a 9 and that's your basting stitch, you can do that as well. And I want to start at the top, so I'm going to rotate this a little bit. I want to go from the top to the top of the other side, so that's why. So I want to start at the top, so that I'm going around in a circle. I started in the middle, which is not a good way to start. And make sure that you pull to get both the exterior and the lining pieces basted together. Because I'm really making sure that foam is sandwiched and I get the front, the exterior, and the lining. That's the whole purpose of this. And this will take a little bit of time. So careful when you get to that seam. It is bulky, so just be careful when you're going over that seam. So this was me earlier, starting in the middle. That's why I have stitches here. And make sure you straighten out your lining fabric as you go. I stop and smooth it out to make sure that it's totally smooth. Yes, you may get a couple of puckers at the edge. You won't see them. Just push them out of the way. But take your time. And you won't see those puckers, by the way, when you finish your bag. So I basted one side. I'm going to go back now and baste the opposite side. Once again, I'm starting at the top and I'm going all the way around. If you have a Freon, this is easier and you can probably do it from the outside. So because I don't, I always tend to do things from the inside, which means I tend to flip my bag in such a way, like to top stitch something. Normally you'll see me turn my bag wrong side out so that I could stitch the right side of the fabric. Nancy said yes. I forget that there's a delay. So make sure you straighten it out. You can see that I have a little bit of a thing, extra fabric, so I'm just going to put a little pleat here. Like I said, nobody's going to see it, which is also the nice thing about doing this from the inside. But even if you do it from the outside, it won't matter because it's so close. And what happens is we're going to put that, we're going to go in and we're going to put our binding on it. So that is done. And what we're going to do next, I'll show you what we're going to do next. At the top here, that's a very big opening on both sides, right? So the reason that I based, honestly, is because I hate when I do something and I come back and then I realize a piece of the fabric folded in or I didn't catch it in the seam. So I based a lot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our bag and we're going to open it up and lay it flat. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered, but we're going to lay it flat. I don't like this gap here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this piece up, this tab that I've created here. I'm going to push it up or down. It doesn't matter because we can flip it back up. And I'm going to sew these two pieces together. So these ends, I'm going to push them in and sew them together. Once I've done that, it eliminates that opening. And then once I've done that, I'm going to take this luggage connector and I'm going to place it here and I'm going to stitch it on. So when it flips back, there won't be a big opening right there. And my zipper will sit up just like that in my bag. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'll do it at the same time, is I'm going to sew these two together. So I'm going to put a clip in this. And I'm going to do it at both ends, right? So I'm going to do it. If you want, and you don't want to do that, this is too wide, by the way. It's wider than that. So I'm going to push them together and I'm going to put a clip in it. And when I get to the sewing machine, I may have to redo it, but it's fine. I'm going to put a clip there. I'm going to flip it to the other side, and I'm going to put another clip here. And if the zipper is down and you do it, then after you're done, just push the zipper up. It's just easier if you push it up now. But if it goes down, don't worry about it. You can push it up later. So I'm going to clip these. You can also overlap them if you want to, Tad. I just do them right together, just like that. When I'm done, like I said, I'm going to take this and I'm going to stitch it on there. I'm going to stitch it on there at 1/4 of an inch because our binding is 3/8 of an inch. So 3/8 of an inch is bigger. So I want to make sure this is on there. So I'm going to stitch it on at 3/8 of an inch. So you're going to need both of these anchors. All right. So now I'm at my sewing machine. Once again, I'm going to stitch these together. If the clip doesn't hold, that's totally fine. Make sure you fold the back of your bag out of the way when you do this. So what I did is I dropped my presser foot. I dropped it a little bit of ways from there. And I'm going to stitch across till I get just on the other side of that opening. Turn your stitch length down to a 3 because I want to make sure it holds. If you need to, it can be 3.5. And I'm going to stitch across, and I'm going to back tap. When I get right there, I'm going to take this end and I'm going to push it right next to the part that's getting stitched. So I'm going to hold it and keep it pushed in. When I get over to the other side, I'm going to back tack back across to where I came from, and then I'm going to go back in about 1/4 of an inch. So once you've done that, you can see it closed up that opening, and that's really what I want to do. I want to close up the opening. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take this, put it right next to it. And I know sometimes I don't put it right next to it. But in this case, I am. I can't put extended past because I'm going to put binding on that. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch again. So I'm going to stitch again at 1/4 of an inch going across. Back tack, make sure you go off of this webbing because you want to lock it in there. And when we do the 3/8 of an inch, it'll add just another row of stitching. Okay, so now I've added that. All right, so that's what it looks like. So I'm going to do it again on the other side. So let's turn it to the other side. Make sure that your other piece of your bag is out of the way. So don't stitch through both layers. We're just stitching through one layer. Okay, I'm starting about 1/4 of an inch back from this edge, and I'm going to back tack. It is 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, so I'm going to back tack. When I get right, like almost to the end, so about 1/8 of an inch from the end, I'm going to take this opposite side, stick it right underneath my presser foot, and I'm going to stitch across. Once I stitch across the gap, I'm going to back tack back where I came from, which will close that hole, and then go make it 1/4 of an inch on this side. So now I've done the second one. I'm going to grab my second anchor piece. I'm going to lay it so that it's flush against the edge here. All right, and it should be centered. Don't put it over here. Make sure it's centered. I should have mentioned that. And then I'm starting at the edge of the anchor. I'm starting at the edge of the anchor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch forward and back tack at 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go forward and I'm going to back stitch. And I just bent my needle. Once again, it's about the thickness of your material, so just take your time, which I wasn't. I was like going through this really quick. And I will change my needle. All right, so once you've done that, I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to take a few minutes to change out my needle because I bent it. Okay, but they should both be on there now. But take 1 second, change out this needle real quick. And then we're going to, after we've done this, we're going to go back and we're going to start putting in the sides. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, so we've done what we needed to do here. We've put on our tab connectors on both sides. And what we want to do is we want to now add our side pieces that we made the other day, right? So our sides, which are these, and remember, they should be both right side out with the foam wedged between them. I'm going to mark, we know where the bottom center, we know where the bottom center of our bag is, right? So this is the bottom center, this is the top. We should have marks here. I have a mark here, and I have a mark on the other side for the center. So you want to make sure that those are marked. If they're not marked, do the best you can, right? So what you're going to do is fold it like this, just like that. Match the center, your center seam on the bottom, with where the center is here that you stitched. And to make this easier, just stick a clip in it, just like that. And pull the bag, lay it flat. Then you should be able to clip the center. Now, the reason that we need it to clip the center is because we want to make sure that we put in our side panels. And I'm clipping it at an angle 1/8. So I'm only getting to the 1/8 inch stitch line that I put on the side. So I don't want to make a big snip. So once you've done the side for one, turn it around to this side. Once again, line up these two, because that should now be the center because you joined it, right? You're going to put a clip in it, flatten it out. Once again, put a snip about 1/8 of an inch. I make mine wide at 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to just cut this. There's some little bit of foam here. And then I'm going to do this as well. Right, so now I mark, this is the center, right, top and bottom, center on the sides. So once you've done that, we want to make sure, I'm just going to fold this in half, that we do the same thing on this. So I actually mark the top and the bottom, fold the top and the bottom center marks together, so I can fold it like this, pinch it, and then once again, mark the center. So these are just key points where we'll match up. And then if other things don't fit, that's okay, because we can ease it in as long as we have the top and the sides aligned, right? And we're going to do the same with this. So I'm just folding it in half. Fold it in half this way first. If you didn't mark your centers, fold it in, match up your corners, put a snip. All right, and I stay within the seam allowance. So I start at the seam allowance with my scissor and I cut up, or I start the seam allowance and I cut down. All right, but either way you get it cut, just like this. Okay. So as long as you know what your marks look like, you can mark it with a marking tool like a pen or a pencil as well. And we do this and we mark that one as well. And this is the side that I'm doing. And then we'll do the other side. All right. So to make this work, we are going to need to put our bag wrong side out because we're going to be sewing it from the inside, and we're going to match up all of our raw edges. So you're going to stick your hand back through your bag like this and pull it around so it's wrong side out. All right, so we're now wrong side out. Perfect. Just like that. Gonna need some clips. Need a lot of clips actually. And we'll start with one side and then I'll come back and then I'll do the other side. So you're going to take one of your pieces, so it's one of your side pieces, and the lining side should be facing the lining side. I'm going to start at the top over here, and I'm going to clip this center with the center mark. Once again, lining side of everything is facing out. So I have my center mark and I have my center mark, and I'm going to add a clip right here. Just like that. Then I'm going to do the same, the bottom first. So I'm going to match the bottom center with the bottom seam. All right. Just like that. Turn it to the side and we're going to match up our side marks with the side marks. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the other side. So I'm doing this, the top and bottom center and then the side center marks. Then what I will do is I will fill everything else in with clips in between. But I know that these are, now I know, and the reason I do this is because you want to make sure that your side piece, your side is totally up and down and left and right, right? It's totally, you know, as much as you can, 90-degree angles to each other. So then if you notice the tops curve in a little bit, so then you can go to the top and the bottom, however you want to do it. I start kind of like at the top and I clip it, not on the curve, but clip it like 2 clips here. Then I'll rotate it. And the curve is the last piece that I do. And that's because I want to be able to pull my fabric out so that everything matches. But if I clip the curve, I can't get my finger in there. Is really what I'm saying. All right, so then once I have that, then I can clip this curve. And I put 2 pieces, 2 clips right there. All right, so I have that curve and then I can do this one. But once again, I try to clip as close as I can on either side, and then I do the curve piece last. And that's because I want to make sure that I can get my finger in there if I need to make any adjustments. And now I'll do the other side. Just like this. One more side. So it is easier to clip the flat edges. Now everybody sews curves differently when you're doing this. I'll tell you the way I do it. If you've never done this before and you've never sewn around curves, you'll find your own way. I'll tell you the way I do it. And if you want to give that a try and then try it, a different way the next time, that's totally fine. But when I'm sewing around curves, what I do is this piece is flat, right? So I don't try to go against the natural progression of this. So because that's flat, I normally hold my bag up like this, put a flat side against my sewing bed. So then that flat side is always moving around. That's how I sew around a curve, or when I'm doing this, I try to sew on the outside, not on the inside. But um, that'll change when we put on the binding maybe. But just so that you know, that's how I sew it, and so you'll see me sew it that way. But that's why I sew it that way, because I want the flat side against the sewing bed, and I don't feel like I'm fighting with my sewing bed when I'm doing it the other way. So what I'm doing right now is I don't have my clips flipped in the right uh, orientation. So in order for this to be on the flat side of the clips have to be facing, upward. And I didn't do that. So that's all I'm doing, readjusting the clips. Okay, so now they're all on this side. So I'm going to do the same thing for that side. And once again, I won't be able to speed this up right here, but once again, I'm clipping. By the way, if this is directional fabric, you want to make sure that it's pointing in the right direction. So the top would be at the top over here. Mine is non-directional, so I don't worry about it. But if you have directional, you want to make sure you do that. So I'm just matching the center at the top. I'll match the center at the bottom. And then I will match the sides, and then I will clip all the way around. Both ways and neither are easy. Yeah. Um, there's that, Nancy. There's definitely that. There's definitely, Nancy says that she's tried both ways and neither are easy. That's one thing about, big sewing big bags like this. Finding, the best of the worst, I guess is what I want to say. What's the best of the worst way to do it? Like I said, for me, it's easier for me to sew from the top down, but you just find the best of the worst. Other than that, how are you going to get it done, right? I mean, but I feel your pain. Yes, you did, Nancy. You said, but you did it. Yes, you did. I'm going to post your picture because it was so pretty of your bag. It was such a great picture of your finished bag. I loved everything. I loved the staging of it. But it also helped because of the way you staged it for people to see how big it is because it was sitting on that round table. So that was amazing. I'm going to be at going to Sew Magical Expo in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to take this bag with me because, I have a couple of them now that I've been sewing them. But I'm going to take this bag with me. I think I'm going to also make a mini one, a smaller one as well. All right. Think I got a couple hundred clips in there? Yes, I do. So now we're gonna go and we're gonna sew it around on both the top and the bottom. And we're almost finished. I promise. I promise. Um, we're gonna sew this. Once we sew it together, we're then gonna add the binding. We're gonna flip it right side out, and our bag will be done. So that'll be good. So Nancy, I will definitely show you how to do it, and I'll do a couple of videos on it, and I'll show you. But of course, we can always, just hit me up on Messenger, and we'll do it together. So I'll do a couple of videos this weekend for you, just to show you really quickly. It's really, really easy. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine. So I'm going to bend this down. I'm going to start at one of my, like I said, I want this flat. So I'm going to start at one of my sides of my exterior. I mean, my lining, because it's a straight line. So I normally start where it's straight. I am going to stitch it a quarter of an inch, and that's because when I'm done, I'm also going to put the binding in at a quarter of an inch, about 3/8 of an inch or so. But I'm going to go around, and I want it to sit flat with the binding on, so that's why I'm doing that. At this point, because I am doing it this way, I am going to baste it in. So I'm going to turn it to a 6, and I'm going to baste it in case I see any stitches after I do my binding. So take your time. I just put a new needle in here, so I hope I don't bend anything again. And I'm just going to go around. Once again, I don't have a free arm, so I have to do this. And if you want to know what I'm doing, I'm bending the other piece of the bag here, and I'm bending the other part down under the bag. So. And I am taking my time. I'm not like rushing this. When you get to your corner, press the bag in towards itself. It just makes it easier. And then take your time. If you want, you can, because we're basting it, you can make those stitches smaller. So you can take a smaller stitch. Just make sure you and once I get where I need to be, rotate it. This is a lot easier if the camera wasn't here, but we'll get it done. And make sure your pieces are lining up. This is where I said it gets tricky, where if I did not baste the stitches together, the pieces together initially, it's very easy to lose a piece of the fabric as you're doing this. So it's very easy for a piece of the fabric to get bent under. What's nice is that this is a cotton bag, so it's nice and squishy. No waterproof canvas or anything. It's just a nice squishy bag because of the cotton and the foam. You could also make this with fleece, by the way. It would be more floppy, your bag, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, you're going to stuff stuff in here, right? You're going to put your bag, your clothes, and things like that. You can also just make it out of straight canvas, so you don't need any lining or anything like that, and you can just make it out of canvas, which has no lining, no interfacing. All right, it's just 2 pieces of fabric. Of course, you would leave off the pocket because there's no place to attach it to if there's no lining piece. Okay. just making sure that I get all my fabric pieces together. Almost back around. Oops. You can see the camera getting knocked around here. How close I am to that camera. Okay, so let's do this. And I actually took out the clip sooner than I should have, so now I have to shove my piece back in there. This works so much easier with a stiletto. Okay. And I'm back to the front. Okay. And I will back tack there. So let's cut that and we'll do the other side as well. So once again, I started a flat end and I'll do it the other way. Nancy said she's tried both, so I'll do both. And this is where it's not against. This piece is not against the sewing. So I'm doing it from the side instead of doing it from the top. So we'll do it both ways, just so you can see the difference. I like to see my curves, which is why I do it from the other side as well. Because for me, the curves get tricky. And I have stitched fabric under the curve part that should not have gotten there. So just make sure that you push everything out of the way, which is what I'm doing. I'm pushing everything out of the way of my sewing pad. Okay. Coming back to that curve. So once again, try and see which one works better for you. I did one way and I'll do one the other way. Once again, my personal preference is not this way. But like Nancy said, she's tried them both. And I guess it depends on the bag. So she's with me. Like this one's just a big bag. So. But I like to see how I'm going around the curve, and I can't see that from this direction either. I'm guessing that it looks good from the other side, but I don't really know. So when you come to that curve, make sure you tuck all that fabric away from the curve, except what you need to sew. Once again, you can take your stitching down, make shorter stitches if you want to get around the curve. This I'm like just basting in, so as long as I try to stay within the same amount of the seam allowance, I'm pretty good. You're going to come to this webbing, so I should have mentioned this before, but that's okay. Make sure you sew slowly because it is a thick piece. And you can back tack. Some people will back tack across this a couple of stitches just because you want to make sure it stays in there. And I'm almost done. So I have 2 more clips. I did it again. This is what I mean. I can't see what I'm doing around the curve. I'll show you. Which is why I like it the other way. You see how I sewed that? I don't know if you can see it. There we go. You see how I sewed when I was sewing, what happened is that curved piece fell out right here. So I can't see that from sewing it the other way. So that's why I like sewing it from the top as well, because I can see that, which is not a problem. Just turn the bag upside down, just like this, turn it upside down and do it the other way. And then I can see the curve. Oops. There we go. So I'm just going to sew back and get to this curved piece here. But now I can see that I'm catching it. Before I couldn't see it. It's to each their own, you know. And once again, the bag is very large, so that doesn't help at all. All right, so I can see this. I'm gonna have to find my stiletto at some point. It's actually an awl. All right. So we've sewn that in the home stretch. And for the end piece, I'm going to sew one side, and I will leave you guys to sew the other side as homework. So I'll show you the way that I do it. I'm not actually the best person, and I'll be honest about that. I'm not the best person when it comes to binding. So I do not think binding is my friend, and I am binding challenged. However, I will try it. And I think it's like one of those things, those foods you don't like, but the more you do it, or if you keep trying it every now and then, maybe something will click in, maybe something won't click in, who knows? But if you keep trying it, your taste buds change and you may decide, hey, it's your favorite thing. So I'm just very quickly, 1 second, I just need to find my stiletto for this because it's very, or my awl, because it's very easy. It's a lot easier to do it with one of those. So give me 1 second. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our bag. We're going to take your binding that came in the kit. And what I have you do is I have you fold under a piece of your binding. And the reason that you fold it under is so you have, once again, a finished edge. I like a lot of things to be finished. So I want you to have a finished edge. So the binding opens up, right? So if I unfold it, it's folded in like 4 pieces of fabric. Right, it's sort of like how we did our strap. I start at the bottom. If you don't get this 100% right, don't beat yourself up over it. Nobody's going to see it on the inside of the bag. And then just practice, right? Just keep practicing this, and eventually you'll get better. It's not really, for me, something that I do a lot. So I too need practice. So don't feel that, you're the only one who needs practice with this. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you take the binding. I'm going to have you fold over one of the edges, just fold it over about maybe a 1/2 inch. And that's because when I put the binding on here, I want it to have a finished edge. I don't want it to have a raw edge. I do not start with my binding at the seam. I always start either a little bit before or a little bit after. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, right? And I'm going to stitch. So there's a fold line here. I'm going to stitch on that stitch line. I'm actually going to stitch 3/8 of an inch, which may be a little bit bigger than that stitch line, but I'm going to stitch, and I'm going to clip this binding to the raw edge. So it's raw edge of the binding to the raw edges of my side, the pieces on the side. Now, when I clip this, just want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Give me 1 second because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. And then somebody writes me and says, Catherine, you did it this way. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to clip this like this. And then what I'm going to do is, for me, I'm going to clip it to the inside. And I'll tell you why. When you clip it to the inside, you don't necessarily see the inside of the bag when you open it up. But once I clip it, I'm going to fold this, and I sew it all the way around. I'm then going to fold it where the fold line is, and then I'm going to fold in this side and fold it back like this. So then what's happening is I'm stitching it around this side here, the outside. All right, so that's how I'm doing it. So let's do that. I'm going to clip it. Like I said, I just want to tell you, because I tried both ways, and that was the easiest way for me. It was also easy because it was easy to pull the binding. So I'm going to start a little bit, not on the seam. I'm starting a little bit over from the seam. So I'm starting, maybe mine looks like 3/4, but a 1/2 inch is fine. And I'm going to clip this in place. And I'm matching up the raw edges. This bag is dreamy. Yeah, Vaughn, I may need a couple of binding tips here, though. Vaughn made more than one, but it's big. Yeah, Nancy and I were just talking about that. We're just talking about how big the bag is. So I'm going to just turn it around so I can see what I'm doing. And one thing about binding has a stretch, and that's because of the way it's stitched. It's cut on the bias, which is what gives it its stretch, and it's easy to go around curves because the fabric is cut on the bias. So you can pull it. So I'm just doing it on the inside here. Doing it on the inside. And I'm clipping raw edge to raw edge, just like this. And give it some slack. Don't like pull it super tight in here, but just give it some slack as you go around that curve. So I think this is probably the part that took the longest to do for me. And indicate everybody got binding, so once again, you can make your own, but depending on what you're doing, the project, it's not always necessary. You can buy it and use it because it comes in a lot of basic colors, so black, blue, white, unless you want it to match or contrast with your project. This is inside of the bag, so I don't think anybody's going to look at it and go, oh my goodness, look, they matched it with it. No. They're looking at the outside. They're looking at where they put their stuff in their pocket on the inside. And so I'm a little bit off camera here, but Nancy said, yes, it was. Okay. Almost there. And then I'll do one side. And like I said, I'll leave you the other side, but we'll turn it inside out so you can actually see what the finished bag looks like, even though I showed it to you. But we'll just turn it inside out. So once I get all the way around here, I will overlap here. All right. I will take the binding and I will overlap it a little bit, about 1/4 inch to match that. So I'm going to cut this off because I don't need all of this. And I'm going to cut this off like this. Once again, keep this folded. And then what I want to do is I want to match that edge over here with the folded edge. So when I flip it over, I will have a finished edge. That's really what I'm trying to get to. Once again, You can use that folded line as a guide, but I'm going to sew a 3/8 of an inch all the way around on this binding. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how I'm finishing it off. Try to give you guys so much light that you have too much light. There we go. Okay. So I am going to start at that fold. And the reason I'm starting there is because it's not quite on the curve, but I'm going to start there. And yes, I did start from the inside, so I will not be sewing it in my favorite way. But that's okay. I'll be fine. I'll survive. All right. So if it's easier, you can take out that clip. So I'm going to take out this clip. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Move that out of the way. Take this and start sewing this. And then when you come back, put down the other piece. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is kind of fiddly to get under here. Once again, 3/8 of an inch. And I open this all the way. Some people use the binding and they fold it in half, right? And they use it the way it is. I can never do that because I can never catch the other side and then it looks ugly. For me, not for you, for me. And so this is the way that I do it because I find that I can get a neater finish. So I have my tape here for 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to start sewing. Stitch length is 3 or 3.5, whichever one, because remember it is bulky. And I'm now going to sew. I'm going to back tack. And I'm really kind of trying to use also that crease line that was on my binding as a guide. That also helps. And I'm just going to fold this. It's actually a lot easier to see. With the dark fabric, it's probably a lot easier to see during the day, but it's okay. And I'm going to take my time with this. I want to make sure I get around those curves nice and neat. Not that I didn't take my time before, but yeah. Once again, take smaller stitches if you have to get around the curve. So if that's easier for you to take that smaller stitch, then do so. So you guys can still see. I'm guessing quilters have this mastered. People who quilt probably have this really mastered. But we all have things we have to work on, right? And keep in mind you do have this bulk here from your strap connector. So if you see like I'm slowing down, it's because I'm getting to the top of my bag and I have that strap connector in there. So I'm just making sure that it's out of the way and my needle doesn't hit it. You should have plenty of room because of the way I have you place it in there. But, you know, still take your time. You don't want your needle to hit that piece of hardware. I'm getting there. in the home stretch. I'm coming down to the other side. Okay, so now because I started on a little bit before the curve, I have my folded edge, which is right here. And I want to put this over that where the folded edge is, right? So you want to make sure that's why I stitched it down. And you want to make sure that you lay this when you come around on there so that the two pieces overlap. And that way when you fold it back, you'll have a finished edge. So just coming around this curve here. Almost there. And I matched up the fold with the fold. And then I will back tack. I may or may not have held my breath throughout the entire thing, but it's been known to happen. So let's take a look at what it looks like. Hopefully I did it right. So now it looks something like this, which is pretty ugly. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your binding now, and there's a crease right where the center was, and you're going to fold it over this way, over the stitching, right? So now you can see this side is finished, and you're going to fold it over. And I fold it over to cover those basting stitches that we put in. And then I'm going to clip it in place. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Right, so it should fold over. Remember I said binding is cut on the bias, so it makes it so easy because it does have stretch to pull it over and around to the front. Now the reason that I have you sew this from the inside, I'll tell you why. There was a method to my madness. When you turn the bag right side out, you're going to see this part when you look in the bag. So anybody who looks in the bag, the first thing they're going to see is this. They will not see this piece, and I'll show you when I turn it inside out. So therefore, that's going to be your stitch line. So if you take it too wide or too narrow, nobody's going to see that it's wonky, but they'll see the other side. So if you need to, you can trim back places. Like, for example, if your corner here has too much fabric, you can trim it down. But it should be pretty good. So I'm just going to do this. And I'm pulling it hard. Like when I say hard, I'm pulling it so it's really bypassing this piece right here. So I'm pulling it so it's past that piece right there. And I'm on, I say we're almost done. I'm on page 32. I'm on page 32 if anybody's following along. Okay. So the reason I'm pulling it past that is because when I stitch this at 1/8 of an inch, like I said, you're going to see this, but you won't see the back side. But you want to make sure this is pulled down because you don't want it to not catch. So that's why I say pull it hard so it catches on the other side. So really you should be pulling it past these stitches that are here. So that's going to take a little bit. It's like I almost want to take up quilting just to be able to master this. But if you follow the seams, like I mentioned before, that fold should sit right on top of wherever your raw edge is. So it should sit right nicely on that. Yes. So another option is what Nancy mentioned, which is to hand stitch it. So normally hand stitching, I tried to explain it. You would put the needle up under here and then you'd stick it coming out of the, at the seam, and then you go back in. So you're really hiding the stitches. So you don't even really see where you're stitching. So you can do that as well. So thank you, Nancy, for that. It's interesting, Nancy, you did that and still finished in record time. Somebody told me hand stitching is therapeutic, so they do it while they watch TV. They line up all their hand stitching and they watch TV and hand stitch things. So now I'm getting to that place here, and it's kind of hard to see where I have that fold. So I want to make sure that it's a nice folded edge right there. Like I mentioned, when you look in the bag, you're going to see this piece. So this is the piece that we stitch down, and we're going to top stitch. So if this other side gets ugly, you don't really see it. And like I said, I'll do one side, turn it out, right side out so you can see it. And then I will leave you the other side for the homework. But it's really done. Once you've done this, it's really done. The bag is really, really done. And it is a lot quicker if you're doing it than to watch me do it and explain every single step. Thank you, Miss Arnetta. So she said this is the same process she uses when she's binding a quilt. Yeah, like I said, I think, if I was a quilter, this would be so much easier for me, but I'm not a quilter, and quilter and garment makers have such great tips that actually translate very well into bag making. So I like looking at all kinds of videos and reading all kinds of articles about sewing, not just bag making, for that very reason. Okay. So now I've done that whole thing. Nancy as well. So we have 2 quilters in the group. Yay. Maybe the next bag I should ask you guys about things. Maybe we could figure out how to do stuff better as opposed to me trying to hit my head against the wall. So that's what we've done. I'm going to stitch from this side. I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch. Like I said, if I pull this side very hard, which means it's past the seam, I will catch it. And when I turn the bag in, right side out, you're really only going to see this part because this part gets hidden because of the way it's folded back. So that's just a tip. I'm going to start on a flat edge here and sew all the way around. I do have some of my clips here backwards, so I'm just going to turn them right side out. Just like that. And then we're going to start stitching. Okay. Get rid of these clips. I can't tell you how many clips I step on by the end of the night because I put them here. But let's get stitching. All right, so 1/8 of an inch on that binding. Take your time around the curve. I did change the stitch length to 3.5 because it is thick. So in the pattern, I did change it to 3.5 for that thickness. And then we're going to just stitch. I'm going to back tack, and then I'm going to just stitch around. I did try this from both ways, so I tried it, stitching it the other way, and I found that this was the best. This gave the best results. But once again, you try it for yourself and see what works for you. Almost there, guys. So we're coming around the curve. So we're gonna sew. Oops. Love an automatic thread cut. I hate it when it cuts the thread and you don't want it to. Almost done. Okay, this is the part with the hook, so just be careful when you get there because it is metal. So just take your time. And it is thick, right? Almost. I will have to go back because for some reason I'm getting long and short stitches, but that's okay. I'll go back and fix it. This one is for me. Okay. So there we go. I've added the binding. Now this is what I wanted to show you. So this is the front that I said you're going to see. So ignore my long and short stitches, but I just did 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and it's neater on this side. But if I go on this side, you can see that I pulled it down because there's more of this exposed in the back, but I pulled it down so that when I stitched it, I caught it, right? But that's how you would bind it. And like I said, you're not going to see this back side. You just like here, see, I didn't catch that because I didn't pull it hard enough. So even I make mistakes, I'm going to go back and fix that. But pull it so that it's lower down, like all over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the zipper. I didn't do the other side, so I'm going to do that as well. But I'm going to turn this right side out. And maybe I should turn this into a quilting party. You guys have so much more interesting topics. But I appreciate the feedback from everyone. Annetta and Nancy and Vonna. I appreciate it. Okay. So this is the side that I didn't finish. I won't show you that side. But I'll show you the side that I did finish, which is this side, right? So see, this is the side that I said you're not going to see because once you turn the bag this way and you tuck everything up, you're looking down. You can see it. But you're looking down on that side that you stitched on the inside because the rest of it is against the lining side. So once you push your bag out, that other side you don't see. And really this side you don't see because it's so deep in there and it's navy blue, right? So if you used a navy blue thread, you really wouldn't see it. Right? But that's how it looks. And you should do the same for, this side that I didn't do over here. Right? This side. So we're going to do the same thing. And then what happens is you're going to close up your bag or open it up, give it a good ironing, right? You'll have your strap connectors on the side, both sides. We already did our strap earlier, so this is your strap. You connect that on there, just like that. All right. Oops, sorry about that, guys. And as you can see, your bag is done. So, yes, it was a lot of days. It wasn't a lot of days. It was a couple of hours. It was a lot of me talking, but it goes a lot quicker. Honestly, if you think about it, you can make one of these in a day. Because I look at the number of hours I spent explaining everything and going through it step by step. But from cut to finish, the first one may take you longer, but after a while, you can make one of these in a day. So if you wanted to, you could. These would make great Christmas gifts, and especially if you know, like, there's a mother and daughter, or a little girl and her mom, right? Or a group of sisters is also very cute. It's also a very cute thing to give as a gift for like a retreat. So if you're going on a girls' retreat, you can make a couple of these. If you're an embroiderer, you can embroider on the name. That would be cool. And then maybe make a little pouch or something as a makeup bag. So this was so much fun for me to do. I hope you guys had as much fun as me. One thing I'm going to say, and I probably shouldn't say, is I'm just so happy that the tech cooperated. So that's 2 for 2. That means what I'm doing. So far, so good. I appreciate all the feedback that everybody gave me. I also thank you all so much for joining me. And that lets me know what's happening and what's going out into the world. And I really, really appreciate it. So I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Some of you I will catch up with on Facebook, because we have a couple of things happening over there. And if you're watching this on replay, get my words out, replay, please remember to subscribe. I do so along probably now once every other month. And I will be shooting some more videos. Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend.